All right. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whichever part of the world you are. So this is your host Ashutosh inviting you for this happy hour of coaching. Now, this is a new initiative which I've started in 2021. I'll be available every Friday evening, 8 o'clock. And just to let you know, this is not a New Year resolution which I want to break. I think that's what happens with any New Year resolution, right? I mean, New Year, we always say that New Year resolutions are something which are meant to be broken. So this is not a New Year resolution. At least I will try to see that if I can come every Friday and present on some very interesting topic related to agile, related to coaching, related to transformation. That's what the intent of this session is. It's called Happy Hour of Coaching, as we all know. I think all of you have registered for this. And I always feel that happy hours is something which should not be disturbed because of pandemic, right? I mean, we all know that we have been practically in a lockdown situation for last 1 year now, almost. I would say not 1 year, of course, 8 months. But happy hours is something I think which we all cherish, right? Friday evening happy hours, right? I think we all used to cherish that. And now, because of pandemic, because of social distancing, this is something which has gone out of our life. So the intent here is to continue with that, maybe in a virtual format. So today's topic is on product thinking from a coach's lens. And I'll talk about this topic more as we move ahead, what this topic is all about, what made me motivate to have this topic. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Ashutosh Bhattodekar. I'm an enterprise agile coach, a trainer, and a design thinker. That's my LinkedIn profile. So in case anyone is interested to get connected with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to get connected with me on LinkedIn. And I'll be more than happy to have this conversation taking forward on LinkedIn also, or any other doubts you have. We also have a YouTube channel now. So we officially have a YouTube channel. So there are a lot of interesting content on that YouTube channel. So in case anyone is interested to join the YouTube channel, you can join. You can search on Agile Coaching Masterclass with my name, and it will take you to the YouTube channel. And do subscribe to the YouTube channel. So all these videos which are a part of the happy hour of coaching or any other sessions which we take, they will be uploaded on YouTube. We also have a community group on Telegram, which is called as Pune Agile Thought Leaders. So if you're interested, you can join. Again, it's not a compulsion to join any of these groups, but if you want to learn, if you want to have that content on a continual basis, this is something which is available here on the forum, and feel free to join this. So I've pinged in the links of the YouTube channel. I have also pinged in the link of the Pune Agile Thought Leaders Telegram group. And in case you want to be not socially connected, which is absolutely fine, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. And who am I? I would say that I'm your coaching partner. So any queries you have on coaching, transformation, design thinking, I will be the one who can actually give you that whatever limited knowledge I have. Again, with respect, whatever limited knowledge I have, we do offer coaching advice. We do offer coaching services as a part of this initiative. So feel free to get connected with me, and we can talk further on this. Now, coming to today's topic, as I said, today's topic is about product thinking, and more from a coach's lens. So, one of the challenges which I have seen, or one of the situations I have encountered in my coaching journey, is that when we go in for a coaching engagement, we have been restricted. I don't know if anyone has experienced this before. We have been restricted that, you know what, you should only be coaching the development team. You as an agile coach, should not be actually talking to a product owner, or why do you want to coach product owners? Our product owners don't need a coaching. But believe me, I have found even the best of the best product owners, they have created a kind of a blunder with the prioritization, right? I mean, that's where I feel that we as coaches have a very crucial role to play. Just a disclaimer, I'm not a product owner, I'm an agile coach. So this entire webinar or this entire session is going to be from a coach's perspective, but more aligned with the product way of thinking, that how as coaches we should be thinking in the product way of product line, right? So let us say that you want to buy a product. Let's say you want to buy a mobile phone. Let's say you want to buy a LED TV or a refrigerator. What will you look for a product? Should it be good? Should it be cheap? Or should it be fast? Or you need all three? Anyone would like to take that up? Would you like your product to be good? Would you like your product to be cheap? Or would you like your product to be fast? Or would you like all three? Fast, or you can replace cheap with economic. You can replace fast with efficiency. Yes, anyone would like to say here? Would you like a product which is fast, a cheap, or a good? What do you think? And you can quickly unmute and speak if you would like to speak. Also, you can unmute.
Well, I'll take for go for
Okay,
efficient and good.
efficient and good is what all. Okay. Oh, you need all. Okay. Good, cheap, and fast. Yeah, I think everyone needs all, right? Everyone needs all. Everyone needs all of these things to be there in our product, right? But as with every product, what comes with a product? Terms and conditions. What comes with a product is a terms and condition. Unfortunately, you can only get two. Okay, you can only get two. So we offer three kinds of services, right? But you will get only two. Good and cheap won't be fast. Fast and good won't be cheap. And cheap and fast won't be good, right? So this is a dilemma which I think every product owner or a product manager faces in his product evolution journey, is our product evolution journey, that we try to balance all the three triangles. Just like we have a scope, schedule, and cost. We have scope, schedule, and cost, that classic triangle, triple constraint problem in core project management. We have this classic dilemma in product management in that three triangles, which is on one side, you have a good product, you need a product to be good. On the second side, you need a cheap or I would say an economic product. And on the third side, we need a fast or an efficient product. So that's what we call as the kind of a dilemma which every product manager or a product owner faces in his or her product journey, right? And coming back to our topic, as I said, coaches dilemma, right? As coach, we always find that we are isolated. We They say that, oh no, you should not be coaching product owners, you should be coaching the development team, you should actually be more into the scrum part of thing, right? Coach the scrum master, coach your QAs, coach your development team. But our product owners don't really need coaching. Our product owners are someone who don't really need coaching, is what we always get told, right? So our life as a coach, I have experienced is sometimes it is very, very lonely. This is what happens on the what is on the left hand side. We actually are lonely, right, in our transformation journey, right? Many times we have that lonely feeling. But if you look at this, the picture on the right hand side, this is a very interesting picture. It is a 1930 picture of Empire State Building, and these are a group of workers who are enjoying their lunch. It is not a trick photography. Okay, it's not a trick photography, it's a real picture. I have verified it, because in these days of fake news and all, we have to be very sure before we present a content. This is a picture which is showing that a group of workers who are constructing the Empire State Building in 30, I think, if I'm not wrong, they are enjoying their lunch. But I look at this picture from a totally different angle. I look at this picture from an angle which suggests that, you know what, these are the people who are doing a UAT of their product, if you ask me. They are giving a message to the world that this is the quality what we are building. Come what may be, this beam is not going to fall. As you can see, they are sitting on a tall floor. It's not a ground floor where they are sitting and they're enjoying. And they're giving a strong message to the world that we are loving the product what we have developed. We are confident about the product what we have developed, that come what may be, it is not going to fall down. How many of us can be confident about our product that once it is released on Play Store or Apple Store, it is not going to crash? Or how many of us can demonstrate this message to our product leadership or to our customers, sorry, not product leadership, to our customers, that, you know what, I give you that confidence that this product is not going to fail. This product is something which is not going to fail. I am giving you that particular confidence, right? That's the level of, I would say, precision. That's the level of accuracy with which we have to work. How many of us really know that once our product is in the Apple Store or the Play Store, which are the top three liked features of our product, or which are the top three unliked features of our disliked features of our product, right? We never even bother to look into it, right? We suddenly are so much engrossed in this world of sprint and in this world of Kanban and this world of visual board, that we actually forget the world class products or the world class features what we have developed. Now here I feel the role of a coach is very, very important. As a coach, we have to constantly highlight We have to celebrate success, we have to celebrate failure, as we say, but you have to constantly highlight the fact that this product is your baby. As a team, I'm saying, as a team, this is your baby, so you have to nurture, you have to grow. You're growing that baby, and just like when your kid becomes 18 years old, right, you pass on the mantle to him and saying that, okay, now I have nurtured you, now you are ready to move into the real world. Also for product, when our product is developed, when it goes through the demo process, when it goes through the review process, we need to safely ensconce it into the real world. Real world is the Play Store and the Apple stores of the world, and we have to constantly look at it also, that how is my product performing? Are we really tracking the product level matrix? Are we really saying, as I said, one of the matrix is what we say, as I said, the top 3 loved features of your product, the top 3 disliked features of your product. How many of us really measure this? We are so engrossed with transactional matrix that we forget these matrix. For example, I think I'm pretty sure if I ask this question to many of you, what matrix do you measure in your agile transformation? I'm sure 80% of you will say either velocity or a say-do ratio, or let us say the burn down chart. We have a look at the burn down chart. But if you ask me, yes, those are matrix, but those are not product matrix. Those are not going to indicate the agility of your transformation. Those are just very, very transactional matrix. In fact, I have a very strong view on what we call as velocity, right? Velocity, as per me, is the most used, misused, and abused metric in any agile transformation. I'll repeat once again. Velocity, as per me, is the most used, misused, and abused metric in any agile transformation. Believe me, if I'm a scrum master in a team, I can easily show you how my team's velocity has improved. I can show it to you. All I need to do is I need to inflate my velocity. I can easily convince you why this particular story is a 5-story point and not a 3-story point. And that's it. My velocity improves, right? It's like faking your diet. So your doctor says that you should avoid fatty food. I tell to the doctor, yes, yes, I'm not eating fatty food at all. See, this is a photograph. See what I'm having for dinner. So I put all the fruits and healthy food in the dinner table, but below the camera, I have all the fatty food with me. It's like that, right? So velocity, as I said, it's the most used, misused, and abused metric in any agile transformation what we can get. So we have to bring about a culture of product thinking. We have to bring about a culture of measuring product related matrix is something which is very, very important. Yeah, so moving ahead, some interesting products which came out in the COVID world. So the top picture is about what the Punjab police came out with, how to catch a criminal in a COVID situation. See how they're catching, right? It's a very innovative idea. If you see, it's a very innovative idea. They want to maintain social distancing. At the same time, they want to control the crime in a city. So this is a kind of a product. This is a product, by the way, what they have come out with, right? That's an innovation angle to product thinking, and where we as coaches have to coach our product owners to think beyond the obvious. And I'll tell you what is obvious in a short while. The second product, if you see, the local milkman, the local dairy milkman in India, delivering milk in the morning. If you look at this is again an innovative angle what he has tried to bring in, right? He doesn't want to interact with the customer very closely. So he has created a kind of a pipe, and he's going to pour the milk from the funnel which is attached to the pipe. The customer has to stand at least 3 or 4 feet behind the motorcycle, and the milk would be delivered in this way. So a very innovative product, right? A very innovative idea which has come out of this, of the COVID situation. As they say, right, necessity is the mother of invention, right? As they say, necessity is the mother of invention, what we have here. All right, moving ahead, right, one more example. So those of you are from the state of Punjab will know this for pretty sure. So around 10 years back, it was found that all the washing machines sales suddenly jumped up in the state of Punjab and Haryana, right? So there's a drastic increase in the washing machine sale, and they tried to understand the reason. I mean, how come suddenly there's a rise in the sales of washing machine, right? And they tried to figure out what is the corresponding sale of detergent or washing powder soap, or washing machine soap, right? Or washing machine detergent. And they found that as such, there was no pattern, there was no direct correlation between the two. And you know what? What came out interestingly was that these washing machines were not used for washing clothes, they were used for preparing lassi. They were used for preparing an Indian drink, Indian traditional drink, which is called as buttermilk or lassi, right? That was what came out. I mean, that's the kind of innovation we are looking for, right? And here, when we ask for a small change in our product, see the kind of a pushback we get, right? Oh, no, no, it cannot be done. This product, we never signed, we never discussed this in our contract. No, no, I cannot do this change. We all come out with those, I would say, rationals, right? Why this particular change cannot be accommodated. Or no, no, I mean, this product was never meant for this particular feature, right? Imagine if WhatsApp would have, sorry, if Uber would have done the same thing, they would have never come out with Uber Eats, right? Uber Eats is an innovation. I mean, I would have never thought that a cab rider app or a cab delivery company, which will make sure that I get a cab at my residence, whatever time of the day or night I need, would go into a kind of a food delivery app also. That if I am hungry and if I want to order a food, I can do that through Uber app also, right? I never thought that, right? But it is there today, right? I mean, they're thinking beyond the traditional use of the product. What I'm trying to tell is you have to think innovatively, not necessarily that the product which you design is the fixed, I would say, fixed features in that product. You have to evolve beyond it. What I'm trying to tell here. So let me show you an interesting 2x2 matrix. Okay, and as I said, this product was mostly used for churning out lassi and not for washing clothes. And they could churn out huge quantities of buttermilk in a shorter span of time. Okay, let me show you an interesting 2x2 matrix. On x-axis is the technology. The technology, whether are you going to develop your product in existing technology or are you going to leverage a totally new technology? So that's what comes in x-axis, what we have. And on y-axis, we have the market. Is the product going to be launched in an existing market, or is the product going to be launched in a totally new market? A total virgin market is where we are going to launch the product, right? Now let's take a company which is operating in zone 1, which is operating in zone 1. They're going to develop a product using existing technology, and they are going to target an existing market. So you will have companies who are developing product in this zone, right? Now in this zone, although I might earn money, the innovation curve will not be that great. It will be a kind of a very, very flat innovation curve what we'll get. So most of the products in this zone will be something which are already there in the market. So there could be 100 toothpaste manufacturers in India. You will be the 101st. There could be 50, let us say, pen manufacturers in India, writing pen manufacturers in India. You will become the 51st pen manufacturer in India. Nothing wrong in it, nothing wrong in having your product in that zone. But then ROI, right? Return on investment or revenue, it won't be that spectacular, right? So in quadrant 1, you will have companies like toothpaste manufacturers, soap manufacturers, pen manufacturers, water bottle manufacturers, wristwatch manufacturers, etc. Right? So my product would be in that zone, right? Now let us say that quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 is about existing, I would say, technology, but the market is new. Again, you will reach some growth. So you start with a product in quadrant 1, new existing technology, existing market. Let's say I start with Western zone, and then I try to scale it up. Then I try to scale it up to, let's say, Southern India. Then I try to scale it up to, let us say, Eastern India, then Northern India. And then I try to scale it abroad also. Let's say SAARC countries first, followed by Southeast Asian countries, then Australia, New Zealand. And that's how I scale it. So this is more on the scaling across regions. Again, I will earn money, not that I will not earn money. But again, the returns would be comparatively lesser compared to what a real innovation would fetch me, right? That is quadrant 2. We say that it is existing technology, no change in the technology, but a new market segment we are trying to attack, right? Now come to quadrant 3. A new technology, but an existing market. A new technology, but an existing market is what we are trying to do. Now, in this case, you are going to really kill your competition out. If you can really come out with a world-class product in this quadrant, if you can really come out with this a new revolutionary product in quadrant 3, this will be a disruptive innovation. It will really kill the competition. It will have what we call as the blue ocean. You will be floating in a blue ocean. There's something called as a red ocean strategy, and there's something called as a blue ocean strategy. So red ocean means that you have players fighting with each other. It's akin to the sharks who are in an ocean. So let's say in an ocean there are 5-6 sharks. Over a period of time they will kill each other, and only the fittest of them will survive, as we all know, right? So the and because the fittest of the shark has survived, he or she has eaten the other sharks. There's a lot of blood which has spilled in the ocean. So that's why it's called as a red ocean. Red ocean is an ocean where you will find a lot of, I would say, competitors in that market. But let's take an example of a blue ocean. In a blue ocean, I'll be alone. I'll be alone there to float as a shark, and there won't be any bloodbath as such, which is why it is called as the blue ocean and the red ocean strategy. There's a company in India which has done this very successfully, disruptive innovation. It's in the media, sometimes for the right reasons, sometimes for the wrong reasons also, because of the kind of a monopolistic situation it tries to bring in. And no prizes for guessing this company. It is Reliance Jio. It is Reliance Jio, right? The way they could completely revamp the market. No, it's not Tata Nano, it's Reliance Jio. Tata Nano, I'll come to it a little later. It's not Tata Nano, it's Reliance Jio. The way Reliance Jio completely disrupted the telecom market, right? You saw, right? Everyone was fighting on the voice. Voice was the, I would say, the bare minimum or the datum, what we say, right? Voice was the operating system of telecom. Whether it is Ideas of the world, the Airtels of the world, or Vodafones of the world, voice was their currency in which the entire business was being transacted. Reliance Jio comes in and it does a complete paradigm shift. It converts the currency from voice to data. And you find that there are a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening in the telecom space. You find that the existing telecom players were struggling. Another example can be Amazon, a disruptive innovation. The Walmarts of the world, the Big Bazaars of the world, the DMarts of the world, they got challenged. The Carrefours of the world, they are the ones who got challenged because of Amazon. Because here, you don't even have to walk out of your home. You just order the items and the items are delivered within, let's say, 2 hours to you, right? So that's a new technology, but you're capturing the existing market, which is a disruptive innovation. Now comes the fourth one, which is new technology, new market. You come out with a game changer product altogether, which not only disrupts the technology, which also disrupts the market as a whole. And this is what we call as a radical innovation. Products in this zone are coming under radical innovation, what we need to understand. The best example of this is Serum Institute of India coming out with a COVID vaccine. It's a radical innovation which has come out, or Oxford coming out with a COVID vaccine, or driverless car, the concept of a driverless car. So all these are coming under the quadrant 4. Now, as a coach, where I'm again putting myself in the role of a coach. As I said, I'm not a product management expert, I'm a coach. As a coach, I have to make sure that when my product team is coming out with a product backlog, when they're trying to figure out what could be the features which will go in my product, where are these features? I have to coach my product teams. I have to coach my product owners and managers. And as a coach, if I can bring the features in this zone, this is where I will be able to achieve a strong business agility for my transformation. So business agility is not just conducting scrum events. It's not just conducting daily stand-up meeting or training, teaching them what agile estimation is, what story point estimation is. No, you don't need an agile coach for those things, right? And that can be taught in a 2-day scrum training, right? Why do you need to hire a expensive agile coach for this, right? You know the salaries of agile coaches, right? Agile coaches don't come cheap, right? I think people who are agile coaches will vouch that statement. Agile coaches don't come cheap, right? So why would an organization invest in an agile coach when all he or she is going to do is take a 2-day scrum master training, make sure that the daily stand-up meeting is happening, have some nice fancy chart papers which will show a burn down chart and all, and generate dashboards out of Jira? No, you don't need agile coach for that. You need an agile coach to coach your product leadership team. You need an agile coach to coach your leadership team to move into that zone of your radical innovation and disruptive innovation. Can we bring about our product and its features from a zone of architectural innovation or an incremental innovation to a zone of radical innovation or a disruptive innovation? That's where an agile coach or a transformation leader has to bring about his or her expertise to make sure that at the end of the organization benefits from the business agility. So business agility is the buzzword nowadays, by the way. Business agility is something which is a buzzword. And what business agility is all about, that we as an agile coaches working with the middle management and the leadership team, the senior leadership team, to bring about a culture of transformation, and more importantly, a culture where our products are in that zone of radical innovation and disruptive innovation. So those of you who have attended my agile coaching masterclass, this might have been a little repeat for this for them, but just in the interest of the audience which is new here, I just wanted to cover this, that how as coaches we take our teams from a traditional way of innovation to a disruptive or a radical innovation. All right. Now we have this classic model which is called as IDEO's three lenses of innovation. What this IDEO's three lenses of innovation says is that for a product to sustain long, we need to have three dimensions applicable for that product. So if you look at this section is the sweet spot where your product should be. This is nothing but a sweet spot where your product should be. And this is called as the IDEO's three lenses of innovation. This has been developed by David Kelly, who founded the design thinking school at Stanford University. And what he says is that for a product to be successful, it has to be viable, which means there has to be a business viability for the product. People should desire that product, and the technology should be feasible. There should be a feasibility of technology for it is missing. The product won't be an innovative product. For example, there's a people want a product and the business feels that there's a viability, but the technology is not there. It will just be an emotional innovation. I'll give you an example of emotional innovation. I come from a city, Pune, and we have a very good connect with Mumbai. I think many of you would have heard about the Pune Mumbai Expressway, which is the first expressway, which is I would say a kind of a access controlled expressway in India, right? Now, my wish is that, you know what, Pune and Mumbai ideally should be one city and travel time should be 15 minutes. And this is my desire, right? You can't say that, how can you desire like this? This is my desirability that I should be able to travel from Pune to Mumbai in maximum 15 or 20 minutes. The business has a viability. Just check the toll receipts at Pune Mumbai Expressway. Almost, I would say 20% of Pune population on a daily basis goes to Mumbai and comes back, or rather they have to stay. They don't come back, they have to stay because of this 3-hour journey or 4-hour journey which it takes today in spite of the expressway. So business has got a viability for that product, but there's no technology today, and that's why they're discussing that hyperloop technology. So it's all in my brain right now, emotional innovation, right? Emotional innovation, as we say, right? Since I think most of us are from India, फील गुड फैक्टर, राइट? अच्छा है भाई, अच्छा है, हाँ अच्छा है, मुझे चाहिए वो, और बिजनेस भी बोल रहा है चाहिए, राइट? पैसा है इस प्रोजेक्ट में, but technology kahan hai? Where is the technology to bring that, right? People versus business, but the technology angle is missing. Similarly, people desire something, technology is feasible, but there is no business viability. This is process innovation. That's it. This is pure process innovation. And the third angle is that business viability is there, technology viability is there, but people don't desire that product. Any example of this product you can think of? The business viability is there, technology is there, but people don't want this product. The product is available. Can you think of any product? It is there, by the way. You can still buy that product, but very few people are buying that product today. Business has produced that product, technology is available, but people are not buying. Blu-ray disc, probably. I will give a better example, Google Glass. A Google Glass is a classic example of that. Google developed this product, the business, on the basis of business viability, right? Why would a company like Google invest in a Google Glass if there was no business viability? Then they had what we call as the technology is there. The technology for the product is there, but people don't want this product. People are not interested in this product, right? COVID vaccine, no, you can't say COVID vaccine. COVID vaccine, people want it. How can you say COVID vaccine, people don't desire it, right? I mean, if they have any doubts on the vaccine, that's a different story. If they have a doubts on the vaccine, that's a different story. And there could be some hidden agenda of people around it. But if you ask me, if you do a poll in India, no political statement here, if you do a poll in India, I'm sure people will say that everyone would like to get COVID vaccine administered. Anyways, so we have to make sure that our product is in this zone. Our product is in this zone of a sweet spot, which is people, technology, and the business side of it. Another interesting, I would say, analogy, what I'm showing you right now is called as the 16% curve. It is called as 16% curve, what we say. And what is this 16% curve? The 16% curve says that for any product you take, you will find that there is a divide. There is a divide in that product, which is what that big yellow blue color wall is, that heighted blue color wall, which is called as the chasm or the divide. So what it says is that any product which is launched in the market, the initial first set of customers are the people who have developed the product, the people who have been a part of developing the product. 2.5% of the, let's say 1,000 people are your potential customers. Out of 1,000 people, 2.5% are the people who are the innovators, who come under the innovators category. Then we have 13.5% of the product population who are early adapters. They are visionaries. They are called as visionaries in this product, buying space. Then we have that divide. So it might take a lot of time from early adapters to early majority, because the first 16% you will get quickly. They are the people who are going to buy the product very, very quickly. Then we have that divide. And then the next 34% of the people of your product population are people who are called as early majority. They are the early majority what we have. And then we have late majority. So early majority are someone who are now convinced about the product. They could be critics also, but they're convinced about your product. And then we have late majority. Late majority, you will usually find some of these people who are late majorities are there just buying the product just for a status symbol, because A has bought it, I should also have it, B also should have it. So these are what we call as late majority, because C has bought it. Now it's become an aspirational value for D also to own that product. So they are conservatives, but they could be joiners or spectators, but they are late in that journey. They are a little late in that particular journey. And then we have a very interesting people, which are a set of 16% who are never going to buy your product. They are skeptics, they are inactive, and they come under a late mass. These are the people who come under what we call as a late mass, or the late, I would say, people who are never going to buy the product. So as a coach, what we need to do, we need to work with our product teams. We need to ensure that can we shift this here? Because if we push this wall to the right hand side, you could get many of the early majority people here. Now, what is the advantage of this? Remember, when a product is launched, it commands a premium. Take an example of an iPhone. When an iPhone is launched, it's usually launched at a price of 80,000, 80, 85,000, it gets launched, right? Or whatever price it is, right? It gets launched at 80, 85,000. And then over a period of time, you will find that when the product is in the decline phase, the price reduces, right? It will be 40,000. They will give some freebies. They will give some other additional benefits, extended warranty, etc. So if I can get many of these people here, if I can get many of these people into the respective zones, how will I get them? I will have to push this wall to the right-hand side. I'll have to shift it to the right-hand side so that I can get more people in that early majority or in the early adapter zone. I will command a better ROI. I will be in a position to command a better ROI for my particular product. So this is what we call as the 16% diffusion curve, or 16% curve of innovation, what we call it, right? So some recent examples from an Indian perspective. This is a dual card launched by IndusInd Bank. What do you mean by dual card? On one side, you have a credit card. On the other side, you have a debit card. So your choice. When you go for shopping, you don't have to carry two cards with you. If you want to do a shopping with debit card, you can do it with debit card. If you want to do it with, let's say, credit card, you can do it with a credit card. The choice is entirely yours, that which card would you like to use, right? Which side of the card, right? The CRM or the customer relationship manager or the customer relationship ID would be the same for the customer, but it's your choice to use which of the card. Another very interesting example of innovation, more from the construction industry. This is a metro station in Sweden, and they had a staircase and an escalator. The purpose was that when people come out of a metro station, the young people should be using a staircase, and the escalator should be kept for, let us say, old senior citizens. But when this metro station was inaugurated, you know what, the reverse started happening. All the younger crowd used to occupy the escalator, and the senior citizens were left with no choice but to use the staircase to come out of the station. So this station came out with a very innovative concept. They converted the staircases into piano keys. So when anyone walks up or walks down the staircase, it actually resonates like a piano playing, right? And what was observed after a few days was that the escalators were practically empty for senior citizens to use, and younger people and younger kids started playing across the staircase. So it led to a 66% improvement in the footfall. So this is a station in Sweden called Odenplan. It's their metro station where this kind of an experiment was carried out. So as product owners, we can get some insights from this. We can get some insights and innovative ideas from such examples what we see around us. So coming to what is the role of a, let's say, a coach has to ensure also that the product team is doing the right set of prioritization. And one of the tools which is used is this one, which is called as a prioritization matrix. Of course, we have other tools like Moscow, we have other tools like Kano model or Ken Wiger's relative weighting technique. But this tool, what it shows you is that on X axis is the value. How much value is the product or a feature going to give me? And on Y axis, we have the ease of implementation. Is it easy to implement or is it difficult to implement? Now, as you can see, whichever are the high value items and which are easy to implement, those are the first one which I will pick up in my backlog. This is a kind of a, this is, I would say, as the first of the first items of my backlog, right? The Moscow, the must-haves of my Moscow model. Then we have the next level of features which are not valuable also and which are not that easy to implement also. The last features are these. These are the features, if you see the light white color or the grayish color, these are I'm never going to implement. These features I'm never going to implement because they are of low ticket items or low value and they are very, very difficult to implement. So why should I touch them? Why should I really go about and touch them and start implementing these features, right? It's absolutely not required. So as a value, so is my product owner really using these scientific techniques or these, I would say, analytical techniques to come out with the product backlog, or is it just by hearsay that the product backlog is being constructed or developed, right? So that's where we as coaches play a very important role. And one of the last slides before I open up for question is that where do I see the position of an agile coach in this entire journey? Like, I think I've been talking about this for almost last 30-35 minutes. Where in an entire where do I see the agile coach positioned in this entire transformation journey or a transformation roadmap? So most of us, when we go into an agile coaching engagement or when we go in as an agile coach, by the way, when I say agile coach, I also mean a scrum master. Okay, the scrum master is an agile coach for the team, as the official scrum guide now recognizes this fact. So if you look at the latest scrum guide 2020, it officially makes this statement that as a scrum master, you are a true leader. You have to work with all the layers of leadership, whether it's a middle management, whether it's a senior management, or whether it's a junior management. And as a scrum master, you are the agile coach for the transformation. So if I look myself, most of us end up being in tower B. What do I mean by tower B or zone B? Zone B is the zone where your value is being developed or you are developing the value, which is you go in as an agile coach or a scrum master, you find that the team is working in a traditional way of working, which is waterfall. You convert them into an agile, and we think that we have done transformation, right? This is what we mentioned in our CVs also, right? That my team was doing traditional way of working, and I trained them in agile, scrum, kanban, dad, dsdm, blah blah blah, safe, right? We talk about all those frameworks, and my team has transformed. But if you're saying that this is transformation, I'm sorry to say this is not transformation, this is transition. There's a fundamental difference between agile transition and agile transformation. And if you put this in your resume and say that you have done agile transformation, believe me, this is not transformation. So when I challenge team members who say that they have done this and this is transformation, and this is not transformation but transition, then they come out with another story. So what is another story? You know what? We improved our tech agile practices. I say, okay, tell me what you did. We were influential in the team coming out with a CI/CD pipeline, and we automated our code, we automated our deployments. I said, okay, that's good, but again, that's not transformation. What is the impact of all of this to your business? How much of the revenue increased? Did the product revenue increase? How many customers were you able to add? That's what we call as agile transformation. Can we give with a confidence to our business that because this feature was implemented, the number of customers got increased? Or let us say that I was able to increase the product revenue or product customer base is something which I could increase. So as agile coach, this is not the only place where we have to get ourselves stationed. I call it as a shift left and a shift right strategy, which is what I say is that as an agile coach, we have to work with the product teams in identifying the value drivers, strategizing and prioritizing the value drivers. The previous slide talked about them, and Most importantly, ensuring that the sponsor is funding the value. The sponsor is funding the value is what we need to understand here, right? We are working on the left hand side. We have to work on the left hand side of this value identification. Similarly, when my product is shipped, when I do 4 5 6, which is I help the team build the products, we validate the product, and we deploy the product, I also need to ensure that is 7 and 2 are in sync with each other, which means has my product monetizing the, is it monetizing, is it really monetizing, is it really enhancing the value, and is it really something, if at all the value has dropped over a period of time, can I go ahead and refine the value, can I move ahead and come out with changes which will further enhance the value of the product. So I call it as the value pipeline. And if you look here as an agile coach, if you ask me today, if you ask a person in an interview, how do you spend your 8 hours or let's say 40 hours in a week, 80% of your time you will say you spend here. 80% of your time most of the people will say here. But in reality, if you ask me, this has to be reversed. Ideally, you should be spending as an agile coach only 20% in the middle tower of your time. The rest 80% will go in value identification and value realization, working with the relevant stakeholders in identifying the business value, making sure that the business value is realized, and over a period of time, enhancing the business value of your product or of your feature. Now, I know it's not easy. There's always that great wall of China between A and B, and the great Indo-Pak wall or the border between B and C. That definitely is the case there. It's not a challenging, it's not an easy nut to crack. And that's where we as an agile coach have to work with the leadership team in bringing about the transformation. One model which can help us in this is what has been prescribed by Scrum.org, although I'm not a fan of frameworks, but this is what we call as the I picked up from that model. And this is called as a business value model, which is how do we ensure that that piece of change which I've implemented in my product has realized product growth, has realized revenues, has increased my customers, has led to an operational efficiency in my team, my employees are satisfied, and social metrics. Social value is something which is very, very important in these days of social media. For example, Arogya Setu app. Arogya Setu app does not have a business value of how much revenue it generated. Arogya Setu app of Government of India, which is a COVID app, has got a social value, that how many people we could alert before they could enter into a red zone of COVID infected area, or how many people we could give them an indication that please don't venture out because there could be a COVID patient near you, near your area. So that's what we call as a social value. That's a social value metric or a social value which this product is coming out with. Right. So my intent of having this happy hour of coaching was to give you a kind of a brief idea about what is the product thinking all about. As a coach, what are the areas we should be focusing on, and how do we work out with our I would say the product leadership team, and how do we ensure that we as coaches ensure that the right set of products get prioritized, and we at the end of this journey we come out with a valuable product to our stakeholders. And you'll have to unmute yourself. So any questions, feel free to ask.
Can you hear me?
I think wait, just a minute.
Hello?
I think I'm not able to hear you. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. There's some audio problem. Just give me a minute. Yeah, Ayan, you can try speaking now. Yeah, anyone has a question? You can unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, hi, Senthil. Yeah.
This is Senthil joining from Chennai, and I am a VLSI
Okay.
design verification engineer. And actually,
Mhm.
so if I'm getting a job, which is I'm right now searching for a job, and I think if I am going to get a job which is having basically a team lead position, will this kind of
Mhm.
Scrum coaching help me because I can see many of the industries from following this agile project means management methodology. That's what I am
Correct,
hearing from my
correct.
friends. So, do you think it will be helpful for someone who's aspiring for to be a team lead?
See, definitely, if you look at the even the roles which are there in the industry today, although you could have a traditional role like a team lead or a project manager or a project lead, agile is something which is, I would say, somewhere which is coming across all the industries. So it's not just IT industry or a software industry where agile is coming, right? So you will definitely learn coaching skills, you will definitely learn transformation skills, real life case studies, as I said, and coaching stances and styles. So if you ask me, even for leadership nowadays, they're saying that gone are the days of command and control leadership. What we expect leaders to also have is a coaching leadership style. So if you ask me, yes, I mean, I would definitely say that it would help you in your growth journey. Maybe not in the current company, but definitely as a career growth, this program will definitely help you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Ashutosh,
Yeah, Ayan, I think you are. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I already posted that question on the chat, actually.
Okay.
All right.
Let me check. Yeah. Meanwhile, let me check. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, maybe I would have missed the chat because I was focused more on delivering,
Yes,
but I'll have a look at the
yes.
question.
So basically, I was talking about the prioritization technique,
Hmm.
metrics, basically. So say suppose you have, because when you say prioritization and you say easy and easy to implement, all right, and high value,
Right,
that is goes to the
right,
first matrix,
right.
right? So however, say suppose you have a feature you are doing,
Hmm.
now you want to be in the third or the fourth quadrant. The challenges in
Hmm.
technology is you will end up with difficult implementations as well, or
Right.
challenges, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
However,
Hmm.
the business
Hmm.
value is pretty high. Now how do you map that?
Bus- So business value high, but technology not easy, right?
Correct.
So that is unfortunately, if you see, I've shared that slide. Can you see that slide?
Yes, I'm on this, I can see it.
Yeah. So you're talking, so, sorry, you're talking about something like a G, right? Or something here.
Yeah, kind of E or G, so that goes to
E or G. Yes, that goes to E or G. Now, if you ask me, if you, yeah, so there is something called as a theoretical piece. If you go theoretically, this will come very
that's what.
yeah, yeah. I got your point. I got your point. And many times there's a pressure from the business that this has to be here, or if not here, they will actually push it here.
Correct, the reason
But
being it might be the backbone of the system.
correct, correct. No, no, then you don't see if it is a backbone of the system, you have no choice. Then you have to pull it up. It can't be in that last quadrant, right? I mean, it can't be in that last quadrant. You have to pull it up. Now, yes, I mean, I always say that a framework is something which will more give you a kind of a, it will give you an kind of a range. And then as a coach or as a product owner, you have to take that call, right? Just like that oximeter in our housing society, right? The other day,
Mhm.
this person in my housing society said, "Saab, aapka oxygen kam hai." तो मैंने कहा, then I asked him that, can I not enter my house? So then he tested it. After some time, it was okay, right? So it's like that actually. Yeah, that oximeter at a housing society, right? It will just give you a kind of a range. But if it is less, doesn't mean that I'm a COVID positive, right? Or I'm suffering from COVID. There
True.
are other ways of finding that out. So it's somewhat similar kind of a tricky situation we are in.
Okay, okay. Now that makes sense. Yes. So that's why I wanted to understand, should we follow it completely or should
No,
we,
no, no,
can
no,
we
no.
make our own choices based on certain aspects? It's
No, no,
flexible,
that's
that one.
yes, yes, it's flexible. So that same thing applies for any framework what you're following. I'm not naming any agile framework here. See, framework I always believe is a kind of a template given to you. But as a coach, as a scrum master, you should have a little bit of flexibility to work on it, right? I mean, it's just at the end of the day, a kind of it's not of something which is prescriptive in nature. It is more of something which is indicative in nature. That okay, if you do this, this could happen, but nowhere it says that I at least in my personal career I've never seen a transformation which has exactly followed verbatim what any of these frameworks say. You always have to kind of I always say that it's framework is not prescriptive, it is more of an indicative, similar to that
Yes.
oximeter example what I gave.
No, that I agree with. That I completely agree
Hmm.
with, because exactly 100% you implemented, it's not possible.
Correct.
Practically, it is not
Hmm.
possible. You have to make some
Hmm.
modifications, right?
Correct.
Because all the situations are different, all businesses are different, all teams are different,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you cannot measure everybody with the same measurement tool. So that's different. But okay, this is something which is flexible. That's what my question was.
Yes, yes,
But
absolutely.
ideally, if it not like that, then we should follow this prioritization matrix. So
Yeah, I
exceptions
mean, I
can be
always,
raised.
yes, yes, you're right. I mean, exceptions can be raised. So sorry for interrupting, but it's something like this, that when I'm new to this tool, right, I would probably follow everything. Shuhari, right? Shu means I'm following my master. So here,
Yes.
this is my master, Paramatma, God, whatever you call it,
Yeah.
right?
Agreed.
And then I follow him or her. And then over a period of time, I realized that, yeah, I mean, this tool, see, a tool also has got its limitation, right? So we have to work on it. The Shuhari method, what we say, or the Shuhari model.
Yep. Okay. That clears it.
Hey,
Thank you.
Ashutosh, I have a question too. This is Harish.
Mhm.
On the previous slide, you talked about these different type of innovations.
Yes.
So, can we get an example of process innovation? The next one, this one,
This
correct?
one, okay, the process innovation. A process innovation could be an automation tool which you have developed internally in your company, but you cannot sell it outside because the business does not find any viability. I'll give an example of Infosys, something which I am privy to. I mean, they successfully developed it, but Finacle was a product which was developed internally for Infosys.
Okay.
Desirability was there, technology was there, but their sales team initially had reservations. ये market में बिकेगा नहीं, this won't sell in market. So Finacle in the initial days, but now of course it's a very successful product. Most of the national
I
banks
think I
are.
have one more example from Infosys. They have a very successful program management practice, which at some
Hmm.
point of time had more program managers than PMI itself.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't do this. Interesting.
Yeah. So Infosys actually started way back before the PGMP program kicked off.
Hmm.
This was almost 10-15 years back. So
Right.
I just thought of that as an example. Maybe the old Infi diehards will know this.
Yeah.
Well, in
Well,
that
thank you
case,
so
Harish,
much,
there is
Ashutosh. Your session was great. So thanks. I got my
Harish.
answer.
Thanks for attending, Harish. Really appreciate.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So in
You
fact,
were saying something?
yes, Infosys, the program management thing you are talking about, that came later. The innovators is are Tata Sons. There is something known as TAS on the lines of IAS. So only the
Yes, yes. I was
yes,
about to give
Yes.
the
Tata
Tata
Administrative
Administrative Services.
Services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So people who only clear that ends up with the executive positions in Tata. That's the rule.
Hmm. True,
Infosys
true.
followed, and they are the
So
early
Tata
adapters. You can say that.
early adapters. Yeah, task was more like their executive positions in all their group companies. So if you want to be a, let's say, an executive director in Tata Hotels, or let's say Taj Hotel, Taj Group of Hotel, or Tata Salt, I mean, or Tata Tea. Yes, I mean that was a common administrative cadre which they had brought in. Okay, any other questions? So just for people who joined in late, this session happens every Friday, 8 o'clock. And I mean, we try to bring about innovative, some new topics, and you can claim PDUs for this session, PDUs, SUs for this session. Those of you who are PMP certified or PGMP or as a Scrum Alliance certification, you can claim PDUs for this certification, for this program, sorry, not certification. Certification, of course, you will get 10 PDUs if you decide to enroll for the Agile Coaching Masterclass. And just in case anyone has missed in the beginning, you can join our Telegram group if interested, as I said in the beginning. And we have a YouTube channel and the Telegram group, as I said, Pune Agile Thought Leaders. So in any case, we will mail you all these details. You can have a look at them. Any other question anyone has? Anyone, any other question? Okay, so I'm just pinging once again. I think someone requested me in private to share the Telegram group and the YouTube channel. So I'm just pinging it here for the benefit of all. Okay, yeah, I think we have a person who has raised hand. Who's that? I think someone raised hand, I think. I'm not able to see. Yeah, Tejas, I think you had a question. You can unmute yourself and speak. Tejas, any question from you? Because I see your hand raised. Okay. Okay, let me see. Oh, okay, that was my mistake. Okay, no worries, no worries. That's fine. Okay,
Sir,
so I think yeah, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
sorry, sir. Sir, is there any situation where this agile is okay to apply and is not okay to apply? Is there any hard and fast rule like that?
Okay, there are some models around it. Maybe you can attend our next sessions where we'll be covering those. So there are some criteria or yardstick on which we decide. One quickly, I will tell you, one yardstick is that how frequently are the changes to the product. If there are too frequent changes, a traditional way of working will not work. Then you go in for an agile. But if the product requirements are pretty static, then you go for a traditional way and don't apply agile frameworks there or agile way of working there. But then it will come out in one of our class in one of our happy hour of coaching session. This will come out. So do watch this space for further details on that.
But Ashutosh, that was a very nice question. I was just thinking about building an aircraft in an agile way. That's not possible, right? So that can be a good example.
You can build. I think all of us are from India, right? Have you watched this Dhamal movie, Dhamal series? They have that aircraft, by the way.
Of course, I'm not interested in that movie, but all right. But if you want to build an aircraft, you can't build just wings and the body differently.
Yeah,
right?
True.
So you have to understand that. Yes.
So you have thrown a challenge to me. Let me find an aviation expert who can talk on that.
Oh, yes, nice. That would be nice.
Okay,
yeah.
Fine. And by the way, we are also going to get other speakers. It's not I who will be hogging the entire limelight. I don't intend to do that. We'll be getting other speakers also. And we're trying to get some more speakers who can come here and present. Knowledge is always about sharing. It's not about one person speaking always. So do watch out. We'll be having more speakers coming in and talking in these sessions. So we have one, we're trying to get one very influential speaker in the month of February. I won't reveal the name right now, but a very influential speaker from Pune, by the way, but he's right now stationed internationally. So we're trying to get him. Let's see. I mean, if it is successful, you will hear about it soon. Okay, so if there are no further questions, really appreciate all of you joining on a Friday evening. I know it's a weekend time, but still you chose. The intent is to continue with this series, and your support is required for to make this series successful. So do encourage your friends to also join these sessions. And once again, thanks and a happy weekend and a happy Republic Day to all of those who are from India. Thank you.
Yep. Same to you.
Thanks. Yeah.
See you. Bye.
Bye.